I remember lying on my bedroom floor with my face pressed into the carpet, tears soaking through, and my chest heaving so hard I thought I'd pass out. My phone buzzed in the corner with messages I couldn't bear to read. My life felt like it had collapsed overnight. My marriage was on the brink, my finances were gone, and my faith in God felt like a tiny flicker that could be snuffed out at any moment. But somehow, through the crushing weight of despair, I heard a whisper in my heart. You're knocked down, but you don't have to stay there. Friends, before I tell you how that whisper changed everything, let me take a moment to appreciate all of you who keep coming back to this channel. Your support, your comments, your love, it means more than you know. If you're new here, welcome. And if you're already subscribed, thank you. You are family. Now, let me take you into my journey. My name is Rachel. I grew up believing in Jehovah, taught from a young age that he is a refuge, a strong tower in times of trouble. But when trouble came to my doorstep, I didn't run to him. I ran away. It started slowly, like a crack in a wall no one notices until the whole house begins to tilt. My husband, Mark, and I had been married for 8 years. We weren't perfect, but we were steady, or at least, that's what everyone thought. Behind closed doors, though, stress had started to suffocate us. Mark lost his job when the company he worked for downsized. Overnight, our financial security evaporated. Bills stacked on the counter like accusing voices, and every conversation turned into an argument. I worked long shifts at the hospital, but no matter how many hours I put in, it never seemed enough. Then came the night that changed everything. I walked into the kitchen and found an eviction notice stuck under the door. My hands trembled as I read the bold letters. Final warning. My heart sank. When Mark came home, I waved the paper in front of him and shouted, "What are we going to do?" He stared at me, exhausted, defeated. "I don't know, Rachel. I've been trying." "Trying?" I cut him off. "Trying isn't enough. We're about to lose everything." The words flew out like poison, words I regretted the moment they left my lips. His face crumpled, not with anger, but with the kind of hurt that makes you want to disappear. That night, he packed a small bag and walked out. And just like that, I was alone. I'd always thought of myself as strong, but the days that followed stripped me down to nothing. I cried in the shower, so no one would hear. I pushed food around my plate without eating. And worst of all, I stopped praying. I told myself, if Jehovah really loved me, he wouldn't let this happen. But oh, how wrong I was. One night, after weeks of spiraling, I finally broke. I fell to the floor, face pressed into the carpet, shaking with sobs. I felt so small, so unwanted, so utterly defeated. I didn't even know what to pray. And then it happened. A thought so clear it cut through the noise. You're knocked down, but you don't have to stay there. At first, I thought it was just my own mind trying to comfort me. But the more I sat in the silence, the more I felt it. It wasn't me. It was Jehovah reminding me of something I had forgotten. I wasn't alone. I grabbed my Bible from the nightstand, dust covering the cover, and opened it at random. My eyes fell on Proverbs 24 verse 16. For the righteous one may fall 7 times, and he will get up again, but the wicked will be made to stumble by calamity. Tears rolled down my face as I read those words over and over again. Fall 7 times and get back up. That night marked the beginning of a shift. Not a quick fix, not an overnight miracle, but a slow, painful, redemptive climb back to the light. And I want to take you with me through it because maybe you're in that same place I was, lying on the floor, feeling like you can't breathe. Maybe you think you've fallen too far. But if you hear nothing else today, hear this. Jehovah doesn't measure us by how many times we fall, but by whether we choose to get back up. That was the moment I realized I was knocked down, but I refused to stay there. When I woke up the morning after that breaking point, something inside me felt different. My problems hadn't vanished. The bills were still on the counter, Mark was still gone, and my heart still ached, but there was a flicker of hope that hadn't been there before. It's strange how one night with Jehovah can give you the strength to take even the smallest steps forward. I remember getting out of bed, making a cup of coffee, and staring out the window at the sunrise. For weeks, I hadn't even noticed the sky. That morning, I whispered something simple. Thank you for this day. It wasn't a long prayer, but it was honest. And honesty, I would learn, was where healing began. The hardest part wasn't the money. It wasn't even the loneliness. It was facing people. At the congregation, everyone seemed to know something was wrong. I could see it in the way their eyes lingered on me, in the quiet questions whispered between friends when they thought I couldn't hear. I wanted to scream, "Don't look at me like that. I'm already drowning." One Sunday, I almost didn't go. I sat in the car in the parking lot, hands gripping the steering wheel, debating whether to just drive away. But then a sister named Angela, one of those people who always seems to notice the one sitting alone, knocked gently on my window. "You coming in?" she asked with a warm smile. I broke. Tears spilled down my cheeks as I shook my head. She opened the car door, sat beside me, and let me cry. She didn't give me a lecture. She didn't ask for explanations. She just said, "Rachel, Jehovah hasn't forgotten you. And neither have we." That was the first time I felt seen in a long while. Little miracles. That week, small things began to happen. Unexpected things. I came home one evening to find groceries sitting on my porch. No note, no explanation, just bags of food I desperately needed. 2 days later, I got a call from a former coworker who had moved to another hospital. "Rachel, we've got an opening. It's not glamorous, but it pays steady. Want me to put your name in?" It felt like Jehovah was piecing my life back together, not all at once, but brick by brick. Still, the climb wasn't easy. Some nights, I sat on the floor with my bills spread out like a battlefield, wondering if I'd ever make it. Sometimes I still questioned if Jehovah really cared about someone as broken as me. But then I'd remember Proverbs 24 verse 16, "For the righteous one may fall 7 times, and he will get up again." And I'd whisper, "Okay, I'll get back up. Just one more time." And then Mark came back. It wasn't dramatic. He didn't show up with flowers or a long speech. He simply knocked on the door one evening, his eyes tired but softer than I remembered. "Rachel," he said quietly, "can we talk?" My first instinct was anger. After all this time? After walking out when I needed you most? But underneath the anger was something else. Love. Because no matter what had happened, he was still the man I had promised to stand by. We sat at the kitchen table, and for the first time in months, we actually listened to each other. He admitted how ashamed he had felt when he lost his job, how my words that night had cut deeper than I realized, and how leaving hadn't been about me, but about his own sense of failure. I admitted my fears too, that I had felt abandoned, unloved, and crushed under the weight of trying to hold everything together. We didn't solve everything in one conversation, but we agreed on one thing. We needed Jehovah back at the center of our marriage. That was the beginning of what I call learning to walk again. Because when life knocks you down, standing back up isn't one smooth motion. It's shaky, awkward, and full of stumbles. Mark found work again, not in his old field, but something new. I learned to budget differently, to live with less, and to be grateful for small victories. We started praying together again, sometimes awkwardly, sometimes in tears, but always with the hope that Jehovah was listening. And slowly, something beautiful began to grow, not just in our marriage, but in my faith. I realized I had been treating Jehovah like a rescuer who only showed up when life was perfect. But he isn't just the God of sunshine days. He's the God who walks with us through storms. Isaiah 41 verse 10 became my lifeline. "Do not be afraid, for I am with you. Do not be anxious, for I am your God. I will fortify you. Yes, I will help you. I will really hold on to you with my right hand of righteousness." Every time I read it, I felt like Jehovah was speaking directly to me. "Rachel, I've got you. Don't let go." Now, I want to pause here and speak to you. Yes, you, the one listening to my story right now. Maybe you're in your own chapter 2. Maybe you're just starting the climb back from something that shattered you. It won't be easy. People may judge you. The nights may feel long. You may stumble more than once. But please remember this. Jehovah is not looking for perfection. He's looking for persistence. He's looking for a heart that refuses to stay on the floor. You may feel knocked down, but that doesn't mean you're defeated. It just means you're human. And Jehovah has a way of turning brokenness into beauty if you let him. That chapter of my life taught me this truth. Survival isn't about never falling. It's about refusing to stay down. And that's exactly what I chose to do, one day at a time, one prayer at a time. I was still fragile. My marriage was still healing. But I was no longer lying on the floor, wondering if I had a reason to get up. I had found it again, Jehovah himself. And that reason carried me into the next stage of my journey. Because the story wasn't over. Not by far. I used to think that once you came back to Jehovah, everything would fall into place, like a perfect puzzle finally clicking together. But the truth? Life isn't a straight climb up. Sometimes you take 3 steps forward and 2 steps back. And that's exactly what happened to me. Mark had found steady work, and I was slowly regaining my footing at the hospital. Things were still tight, but there was hope. We prayed together most nights, and for the first time in months, laughter began to fill the house again. Then the phone rang. It was a doctor from the hospital. My mother had collapsed at home. I dropped everything and rushed to the ER, my heart pounding like a drum. When I arrived, I found her lying on a hospital bed, pale and fragile, tubes running into her arms. She had suffered a stroke. In that moment, everything inside me crumbled. She wasn't just my mother, she was my anchor. She was the one who used to remind me to pray when I was too weary, the one who slipped scriptures into notes she tucked in my purse. Seeing her like that, weak, unable to speak properly, felt like losing the last piece of stability I had left. And suddenly, the storm was back. When stress piles up, old voices creep in. You're not strong enough. Jehovah has abandoned you again. Why bother praying? Look what happens every time you do. For days, I moved like a shadow, going from work to the hospital to home and back again. Mark tried to comfort me, but I pushed him away. One night, after leaving the hospital, I sat in my car in the parking lot and screamed. Not out loud, but inside my soul. Why, Jehovah? Why now? Haven't I been through enough? I didn't want to admit it, but part of me was angry at God. Angry that just when I thought I was standing again, the ground had been ripped out from under me. My anger started to spill out in little ways. I skipped a meeting at the Kingdom Hall, then another. I stopped reading my Bible daily. Prayer became a few rushed sentences before bed. One evening, Angela, the same sister who had sat with me in my car months earlier, called me. Rachel, I haven't seen you at the meetings. How are you holding up? I wanted to lie, to say I was fine. But the truth burst out. I'm not fine, Angela. I feel like every time I try to get close to Jehovah, something knocks me down again. I'm tired of fighting. There was a pause. Then her gentle voice said, Rachel, don't confuse being knocked down with being abandoned. Even Jesus fell under the weight of the stake, but Jehovah sent someone to help him carry it. You don't have to carry this alone. Her words pierced my heart. I realized I had been treating faith like a finish line I was supposed to cross on my own, instead of a daily walk with Jehovah, where he carries me when I can't take another step. That night, Mark and I sat at the table in silence. Finally, he said, I know you're angry. But Rachel, do you realize we've made it through things we thought would destroy us? And we didn't do it alone. Jehovah's fingerprints are all over our story. I looked at him, tears welling up. He was right. The groceries, the job, the roof still over our heads, the strength to even face another day, those were Jehovah's fingerprints. I had been so focused on the storm that I missed the umbrella he was holding over me. The following weeks weren't easy. My mother's recovery was slow. I still battled waves of exhaustion and doubt. But one night, during my Bible reading, I stumbled across 2 Corinthians 4 verses 8 to 9. We are hard-pressed in every way, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed. The words leapt off the page. Struck down, but not destroyed. That was me. I was struck down, but still here, still breathing, still fighting. And that's when I learned the harder, deeper lesson. Faith isn't proven when life is easy. Faith is proven when everything feels impossible, and yet you cling to Jehovah anyway. Slowly, I began to change the way I prayed. Instead of begging Jehovah to remove every storm, I asked him for strength to walk through them. Instead of asking, "Why me?" I began to ask, "How can I glorify you through this?" That shift didn't erase my pain, but it gave my pain purpose. I started talking to other sisters who were struggling, widows, single mothers, those battling illness. I realized I wasn't the only one carrying a heavy load. And sometimes, the best way to heal your wounds is to bandage someone else's. As I comforted others, Jehovah comforted me. Maybe you're in your storm right now. Maybe you feel like every time you stand up, life knocks you back down again. If that's you, I want you to hear me. Jehovah hasn't forgotten you. He sees every tear, every sleepless night, every scream in the silence. You may feel like you're drowning, but remember, Jehovah doesn't let his children sink. He reaches down with his righteous right hand and says, "Hold on. I've got you. You don't have to carry this alone. You don't have to fight in your own strength." Jehovah never promised a life without storms, but he promised never to let us weather them without him. That chapter of my life showed me something profound. Being knocked down once is hard, but being knocked down twice, after you've already stood back up, teaches you resilience you never knew you had. It teaches you that your strength doesn't come from you at all. It comes from the one who never stumbles, never tires, and never lets go. And that realization carried me into the final stage of my journey, where I learned that victory isn't in avoiding the fall, but in trusting Jehovah to lift you every single time.